The council chamber was filled with panic. Ambassador Velthar stood at the center of the massive circular room, trying to keep calm while chaos erupted around him. His silicon-based body shimmered under the bright lights as he watched the holographic display show another star system turning dark. That made 12 systems lost in 3 months. Commander Rixall slammed his wing-like arms on the control panel. His feathers were ruffled and standing on end, a clear sign of extreme stress among his people. "We cannot stop them. The Voidborn consume everything. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls." Around the chamber, representatives from 40 different species argued and shouted. Some wanted to flee to the outer rim of the galaxy. Others suggested surrender. A few simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process the magnitude of their situation. Bo-Ra Kim sat quietly in the observer section, taking notes on her tablet. At 28 years old, this was her first major council session since Earth had joined the Galactic Council 6 months ago. She was supposed to be learning diplomatic protocols, not witnessing the potential end of galactic civilization. The hologram shifted to show the enemy. The Voidborn were machines, but not like any machines Bo-Ra had ever seen. They looked organic somehow, with flowing metal surfaces that moved like liquid. Each ship was the size of a small moon, and they traveled in swarms of hundreds. Wherever they went, they stripped planets down to the core, consuming all matter and energy. "Our defense fleets are being destroyed," Velthar said, his voice somehow cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent. "We have lost 60% of our military capacity. At this rate, we have perhaps 2 months before the core worlds are threatened." "What about the Thredonian battlecruisers?" someone called out. "Destroyed last week, all 30 ships." The silence grew heavier. Bo-Ra raised her hand hesitantly. Several species turned to look at her, and she felt her face flush. Humans were still new here, still trying to prove they belonged among these ancient civilizations. Velthar noticed her. "The human observer wishes to speak?" Bo-Ra stood up, her legs feeling shaky. "I was just thinking, has the Council considered asking Earth for military assistance?" The chamber erupted in laughter. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from stress and disbelief. A few species looked at her with what might have been pity. Commander Rixall's translator conveyed his dismissive tone perfectly. "No offense to your world, young one, but Earth has been part of the Council for only months. Your military consists of what? A few hundred ships? We need real firepower." Bo-Ra sat down, feeling embarrassed. But something nagged at her. She pulled up Earth's admission file on her tablet, the one she had helped prepare. There was a section marked Restricted, Council Members Only. She looked around. Everyone was still arguing. She tapped through the security clearance using her diplomatic credentials. The file opened. Her eyes went wide as she read. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. She had heard the term before but never really understood what it meant. The file explained in detail. Standard Council species came from garden worlds. Low gravity, stable weather, few predators, and abundant resources. They evolved in peace and plenty. Earth was different. Gravity 30% higher than standard. Extreme weather patterns including hurricanes, tornadoes, and temperature swings that would kill most species. Thousands of apex predators. Millions of disease organisms. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. A moon that caused massive tidal forces. Radiation from the sun that required organic shielding. And humans had not just survived there. They had thrived. They had conquered their world so completely that they became its dominant species while still in their Stone Age. Bo-Ra looked up at the arguing council members. They looked so delicate compared to humans. Their bones were hollow. Their muscles were thin. They moved carefully, as if afraid of breaking. She thought about her older brother Dae-Ho, an admiral in the Earth Defense Fleet. She had watched him exercise once, lifting weights that would have crushed most of these aliens. She remembered visiting a military training facility where soldiers ran obstacle courses that included climbing walls, crawling under fire, and swimming through mud. These council species probably thought that was torture. Humans called it basic training. Bo-Ra stood up again. "Ambassador Velthar, with respect, I think you should review Earth's classification file before dismissing us. Velthar turned his crystalline head toward her. Something in her tone must have caught his attention. Very well. Display it on the main screen. Bo-Ra transmitted the file. The hologram shifted to show Earth's data. The chamber went silent as species read through the information. She watched their reactions. Some recoiled in horror. Others looked confused, as if surely there must be a mistake. This cannot be accurate, Commander Rixal said quietly. No species could evolve in these conditions. We did, Bo-Ra said simply. And because of it, our military is designed for survival in impossible situations. Velthar was reading deeper into the file. Your soldiers train at increased gravity? Your ships are built to withstand impacts that would destroy our vessels? You have weapons designed for… What does this mean? Close quarters combat. Fighting at close range, Bo-Ra explained. Sometimes even hand-to-hand. The aliens looked at her in confusion. But why would anyone get close enough to fight physically? One asked. Because humans were predators, Bo-Ra realized. These species were prey animals, evolved to flee and hide. They thought of warfare as something done at maximum distance with minimal risk. Humans thought of warfare as something you did until the enemy stopped fighting. I recommend we send a formal request to Earth, she said carefully. My brother is Admiral Daeho Park. He commands the defense fleet. I can transmit the request directly. The council members looked at each other. No one wanted to admit they needed help from the newcomers. But the alternative was extinction. Velthar made the decision. Send the request. Tell them we need immediate military assistance. Bo-Ra sent the message from her tablet, routing it through the quantum communication network. It would reach Earth in minutes. The chamber waited in tense silence. After 10 minutes, her tablet chimed. She read the response twice to make sure she understood it correctly. Admiral Park responds, Fleet mobilization in 72 hours. Prepare coordinates. Commander Rixal laughed, a harsh sound. 72 hours? Impossible. It takes weeks to mobilize a proper fleet. Bo-Ra looked up at him. Commander, humans live on a death world. We learned to move fast because slow things died. 72 hours means 72 hours. She looked back at the main display showing the approaching Voidborn swarm. For the first time since this crisis began, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you asked predators for help. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly 72 hours after the request was sent. Velthar stood in the observation deck of Velatrix Station, watching the sensors light up with new contacts. He had expected maybe 50 ships, perhaps 100 if Earth was being generous. 300 warships materialized in perfect formation. Impossible, Commander Rixal whispered beside him. No one can mobilize that many ships so quickly. But there they were. The sensor data was clear. 300 vessels ranging from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the galactic fleet. They moved with precision, taking up defensive positions around the station like they had practiced this exact maneuver 1,000 times. They probably had. The lead ship identified itself as the Indomitable. Its captain, Hyun-Woo Lee, requested permission to board for a tactical briefing. Velthar granted it immediately. 20 minutes later, Captain Lee walked into the conference room. Velthar had seen humans before, had met with Bo-Ra many times over the past months. But Captain Lee was different. He moved with controlled power, each step deliberate. His uniform was crisp and covered in symbols that Velthar assumed were military honors. He was also young, perhaps 35 standard years. For humans, that was barely middle age. But his eyes looked older, like they had seen things that aged the soul. Ambassador Velthar, Lee said, extending his hand. Velthar had learned this was a human greeting. He touched his crystalline hand to the human's palm, noting the calluses and scars. This was not a man who commanded from safety. Captain Lee, thank you for responding so quickly, Velthar said. I must admit, we did not expect such a large force. Lee smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. When someone calls for help against an extinction threat, you send everything. My fleet is ready for combat operations immediately. Immediately? But surely your crews need rest after the journey. We rested during the jump. We are ready now. Velthar exchanged glances with Commander Rixall. The journey from Earth took 3 days at maximum speed. Galactic crews would need at least a week of recovery after such a journey. The stress alone would require medical attention. The briefing began. Lee brought his senior officers, Lieutenant Yunhee Choi, a weapons specialist who analyzed the void-borne data with frightening speed. Nari Song, who plotted tactical maneuvers that made Rixall's head hurt, and Dr. Haewon Kang, their chief medical officer. Velthar presented everything they knew about the Voidborn, their tactics, their technology, their seemingly unstoppable advance. Lieutenant Choi studied the combat recordings. They adapt to our weapons, Velthar explained. After the first few engagements, they modify their shields to resist our energy weapons. Then stop using the same weapons, Choi said simply. Vary your attack patterns. Use kinetic rounds, missiles, energy weapons in rotation. Keep them guessing. But that requires constant tactical adjustments, Rixall protested. Our crews cannot process that much information during battle. Choi looked at him with confusion. Why not? Our tactical computers can handle thousands of adjustments per second. Your computers, yes, but your organic crews can keep up, Choi finished. Captain, permission to show them? Lee nodded. Choi pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic display appeared showing a simulation. She began calling out tactical scenarios, each one more complex than the last. Her hands moved across the controls faster than Velthar could track, making split-second decisions that changed the flow of battle. Humans process information at this speed? Velthar asked quietly. When we need to, Lee answered. Our brains develop to track fast-moving prey and avoid faster predators. We are very good at making quick decisions under pressure. Dr. Haewon spoke up. If I may, I would like to coordinate with your medical facilities, in case of casualties. Of course, Velthar said. Though I hope there will be few injuries. Haewon gave him an odd look. There will be injuries. Combat always produces injuries. I need to know if your medical equipment can handle human physiology. This seemed pessimistic to Velthar, but he agreed to show her their medical bay. What happened next confused him. Haewon walked through the facility, examining equipment with growing concern. These surgical tools would not penetrate human skin, she said. Your bone saws could not cut through our skeletal structure. Your medications are designed for completely different body chemistry. Surely basic first aid is universal, the station's doctor asked. Haewon pulled up a human anatomy chart. The station's doctor made a sound of distress. Your bones are solid? The doctor asked. Not hollow? Hollow bones would break under our gravity. And you have this much muscle mass naturally? We need it to move. These organs, you have backups of critical systems? Evolution gave us redundancy. Lose one kidney, the other compensates. Lose part of the liver, it regenerates. The station's doctor sat down, looking faint. You are built for survival. We are built for Earth, Haewon corrected gently. Our planet tried to kill us every day. We adapted. Back in the conference room, Nari was showing her proposed tactical formations. Velthar felt his concern growing. These maneuvers place your ships dangerously close to enemy vessels, he said. Standard doctrine is to maintain maximum distance. Standard doctrine gets you killed against the Voidborn, Nari said bluntly. They have superior range. We need to close distance, get inside their optimal firing solutions, and hit them where they are weakest. But the risk is acceptable, Captain Lee said firmly. Our ships are built to take damage. Our armor is 3 times thicker than galactic standard. Our crews train for worst-case scenarios. We can handle close combat. Velthar realized something that made his crystalline structure feel cold. These humans were not just offering to help. They were offering to do the fighting that no other species could survive. Captain Lee, he said slowly. Your people. You understand you will be in the greatest danger? Lee met his eyes. Yes. You could be killed. Yes. And you still volunteer for this? Lee smiled, and this time it was genuine. Ambassador, We come from a world that tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to fight back. The Voidborn are just another threat. And we are very, very good at dealing with threats. Commander Rixall had been silent, studying the human tactical proposals. Now he spoke. I do not understand. Your tactics are aggressive, almost reckless. You take risks that seem unnecessary. Because we are not afraid, Choi said. Your species evolved as prey. You think safety first. We evolved as hunters. We think victory first. The room fell silent. Velthar finally understood what Bora had tried to tell them. These were not just another species with ships and weapons. These were Deathworlders. Every human in this room had ancestors who survived conditions that would kill everyone else in the galaxy. They had not just survived. They had won. The Voidborn will be here in 2 days, Lee said. I suggest we use that time to coordinate our forces. My ships will form the vanguard. Your forces can provide support from secure positions. You truly plan to face them head-on? Velthar asked. Lee looked at him with absolute confidence. Ambassador, we are apex predators from a death world. The Voidborn are about to learn why that matters. As the meeting ended and the humans returned to their ships, Velthar stood at the window watching the human fleet. They moved in perfect formation, deadly and graceful. He realized the Galactic Council had made a choice that could not be undone. They had summoned humanity to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Voidborn arrived like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Velthar watched from the command center as sensors counted the enemy ships. 200 Voidborn vessels, each one massive and deadly. They moved in perfect synchronization, like a school of mechanical fish. The Galactic Defense Fleet spread out in standard formation, staying at maximum weapons range. 30 ships, all that remained of their once mighty armada. The human fleet did something unexpected. They moved forward. What are they doing? Commander Rixall demanded. They are breaking formation. On the main screen, the human ships accelerated directly toward the enemy, not at cruising speed, at full combat speed. Captain Lee's voice came through the communication channel, calm and steady. All human vessels, battle formation Alpha. Weapons free. Show them what we are made of. Velthar activated the direct line to Lee's ship. Captain, you are moving into their firing range. I know, Lee replied. That means they are moving into ours. The Voidborn opened fire first. Beams of energy and missiles filled the space between the fleets. The attacks were enough to destroy any galactic ship in seconds. The human ships took the hits on their forward armor, and kept coming. Impossible, Rixall whispered. Those shots should have destroyed them. On Lee's ship, alarms blared. Lieutenant Choi called out damage reports. Forward armor at 80%. Shield generators holding. All weapon systems operational. Return fire, Lee ordered. The human fleet lit up space with weapons fire, but they did not fire randomly. Each shot was calculated, targeted at specific points on the Voidborn ships. Choi was targeting the joints where their armor plates connected, the spots where their weapons emerged from the hulls. The engine ports at the rear. She was hunting for weak points. 3 Voidborn ships exploded in the first volley. How did she do that? A galactic tactical officer asked in shock. We have been shooting at them for months with no effect. Bora, watching from the command center, explained quietly. Humans are predators. We know how to find weakness, how to kill. The battle became chaos. The Voidborn adapted quickly, adjusting their tactics to counter human aggression. They swarmed, trying to surround individual human ships. The humans adapted faster. Fighter squadrons launched from the carriers. Tiny ships that moved so fast that sensors struggled to track them. The lead pilot was Sunmi Han, call sign Meteor. Her squadron dove into the enemy formation like birds of prey. Meteor Squadron, with me, she called out. Target their sensor arrays. Make them blind. The fighters pulled maneuvers that should have been impossible. 10G turns that would kill most species instantly. Barrel rolls through fields of weapons fire. They moved like they were dancing, not fighting. Velthar watched Sunmi's fighters spiral between 2 Voidborn ships, firing precision shots that destroyed their communication pods. The enemy ships began drifting, unable to coordinate with the rest of their fleet. "She is insane," Rixal said. "Those G-forces should turn her brain to pulp." "Humans train for high G maneuvers," Bora said. "Our pilots can handle 15 Gs for short periods. 15? Our pilots black out at 3. On the Indomitable, Captain Lee's ship took another direct hit. The whole vessel shook. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Engineer Kitai Jiang was already moving. He ran through corridors filled with smoke and sparks, heading to the damaged section. Other engineers followed him. "Fire in Section 7, someone called. "Then put it out and reroute power," Kitai shouted back. "We are not leaving the battle." He reached the damaged power coupling and began working. The metal was hot enough to burn, but his gloves protected his hands. Around him, the ship continued to shake from weapons impacts. Another engineer looked scared. "Should we not evacuate this section and let the fire spread?" "No, we fix it here, now." They worked with practiced efficiency. Humans had a saying, "Adapt and overcome." Their damage control teams lived by those words. In 15 minutes, they had power restored and the fire contained. Section 7 operational, Kaite reported to the bridge. "Good work," Lee responded. "Now get to Section 12. We have a hull breach there." On the forward line, something even more shocking happened. A human ship called the Relentless launched boarding torpedoes at a void-borne vessel. "They are boarding them?" Velthar could not believe what he was seeing. Who boards a machine ship? Sergeant Tae Yang Ryu led his Marine squad through the breach. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. Inside the void-borne ship, combat robots moved to intercept them. The Marines fought like they had trained for exactly this scenario. Because they had. Tai Yang fired his weapon in controlled bursts, hitting each robot in its central processor. When one got too close, he smashed it with his armored fist. The metal crumpled under the impact. "Clear the corridor," he ordered. "Find their core systems." His squad moved like a single organism. They had trained together for years until they could predict each other's movements. In the tight corridors of the enemy's ship, that coordination was deadly. They reached the core and planted explosive charges. "Charges set," Tae Yang reported. "Squad, fall back." They ran back to the boarding torpedo, fighting through more robots. One Marine was hit, armor cracked but not broken. 2 others grabbed him and carried him along. No one left behind. Human doctrine was absolute. They made it back to their ship seconds before the charges detonated. The void-borne vessel broke apart from the inside. In the command center, the galactic officers watched in stunned silence as humans did the impossible over and over again. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Pilots that should have been dead pulled off miracle maneuvers. Marines boarded enemy vessels and destroyed them from within. But it was not without cost. Dr. Heywan worked frantically in the medical bay. Wounded soldiers were brought in with injuries that would kill most species. Broken bones, severe burns, crushing injuries. She treated them with practiced efficiency, and they healed faster than should be possible. A soldier with a broken arm could return to duty in days instead of weeks. Burns that should scar barely left marks. "Your healing abilities are remarkable," a galactic medic observed. "Our bodies learn to repair damage quickly," Heywan explained while setting a bone. "On Earth, if you could not heal fast, you died." The battle raged for 6 hours. Slowly, the tide turned. The Voidborn had numbers, but humans had something else. They had adaptability. They had aggression. They had the will to fight through impossible odds. Lieutenant Choi identified a pattern in the enemy formation. "Captain, they are protecting something. That cluster of ships in the center." Lee saw it immediately. "Command ship. They have a central coordinator." He opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy center. We go for their leader." The human fleet pushed forward as one. They took damage. Ships were hurt. People died. But they did not stop. The concentrated firepower overwhelmed the Voidborn defenses. The command ship was destroyed in a brilliant explosion. The effect was immediate. The other Voidborn ships hesitated. their coordination broken. That moment of confusion was all the humans needed. "Press the attack," Lee ordered. The battle became a rout. Without central coordination, the Voidborn could not adapt fast enough. One by one, they were destroyed or forced to retreat. When it was over, Velthar looked at the casualty reports. The Galactic fleet had lost 12 ships, 40% of their forces. The human fleet had lost 30 ships, 15%. They had been in the most dangerous positions, taken the most damage, and still suffered fewer losses. Captain Lee's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but satisfied. Enemy forces are retreating. Velatrix is secure. Velthar found his voice. "Captain." "Thank you." Lee smiled. "Just doing our job, Ambassador. Protecting people is what we do." As the communication ended, Velthar understood something profound. The galaxy had been afraid of humans being Deathworlders. They should have been grateful. 3 days after the victory at Velatrix, Admiral Deho Park arrived with reinforcements and a plan that made everyone nervous. He stood before the Galactic Council with a holographic map floating between them. At 50 years old, Deho had seen more combat than most species experienced in their entire history. He pointed to a region of space deep in Voidborn territory. "This is their command nexus," he explained. "A fortified asteroid where they coordinate all their forces across multiple sectors. If we destroy it, we scatter the entire swarm." Commander Rixall studied the map with growing horror. "That is suicide. The Nexus is protected by at least 300 ships and automated defense systems. We would lose everything attempting to reach it." "Not if we do it right," Deho said calmly. Velthar leaned forward. "What are you proposing, Admiral?" "A strike force. Fast ships, heavy firepower, elite troops. We punch through their defenses, disable the Nexus, and get out before they can organize a counterattack." "That is still suicide," Rixall insisted. Deho smiled. "Only if you fail." The strike force assembled over the next 48 hours. 20 human ships, all volunteers. Captain Lee commanded from the Indomitable. Lieutenant Choi ran tactical. Nari plotted the jump coordinates. And Major Yunji Bayek prepared her special operations team for what they did best: impossible missions. Yunji had spent 15 years in human special forces. She had fought on frozen moons, in the depths of space stations, and in the ruins of dead civilizations. This was just another job. Her team consisted of 24 specialists. Sung Min Oh was her demolitions expert, a quiet man who could blow anything up with terrifying precision. Dr. Jae-won Im was their technology specialist, someone who understood alien systems better than the aliens who built them. They trained for 2 days straight, simulating the assault over and over until they could do it blindfolded. Bora watched them train and felt both pride and fear. These were her people, risking everything to save species they barely knew. "Why do they volunteer?" Velthar asked her quietly. "They know the odds." "Because someone has to," Bora said simply, "and humans have never been good at standing by while others suffer." The strike force jumped into hyperspace, heading deep into enemy territory. The journey took 6 hours. In the war room, Deho reviewed the plan with his captains one final time. "Speed is everything," he said. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we do not stop moving. The moment we slow down, they will swarm us." They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system. Alarms immediately started blaring. They had been detected. "All ships, full speed ahead," Deho ordered, "for humanity and the galaxy. Attack!" The strike force accelerated to combat speed. Ahead of them, the Nexus loomed like a small moon. It was covered in weapons platforms, shield generators, and docking bays for hundreds of Voidborn ships. The enemy opened fire, space filled with energy beams and missiles. Lieutenant Choi's voice was steady as she coordinated point defense. "Incoming fire. Mark targets Alpha through Delta. Point defense free. Fire at will." The human ship's defensive systems came alive. Smaller weapons shot down missiles in mid-flight. Shields deflected energy beams. Armor absorbed what got through. But there was too much incoming fire. ships began taking damage. On one destroyer, engineer Kaite was already running damage control. Hull breach on Deck 3, seal it off, reroute life support. His crew worked through the chaos. When a plasma conduit exploded, Kaite personally shut it down, his hands getting burned despite protective gear. He barely noticed. Deck 3 sealed, he reported. We are still in the fight. Captain Lee's ship took a direct hit to the engines. The entire ship shuddered. Engine power down to 60%, Nari reported. Enough to get us there, Lee said. Keep going. They pushed deeper into the defenses. Voidborn ships swarmed around them, but the human formation held. They covered each other, overlapping their defensive fire to create a protective sphere. Pilot Sunmi led her fighter squadron in a desperate attack on the weapon platforms. Meteor Squadron, target the big guns. Make them pay for every shot. Her fighters dove through clouds of defensive fire. 2 were destroyed instantly. Sunmi felt rage and grief, but pushed it down. Mourn later. Fight now. She fired her missiles at point-blank range, destroying a weapons platform that had been shredding the larger ships. That is for Rodriguez, she whispered, honoring her fallen wingman. The strike force broke through the outer defenses. Now they faced the Nexus itself. Major Beck, you are up, Deho said. Yoonji and her team launched from the Indomitable in a special assault shuttle. It was small, fast, and heavily armored. Sungmin sat beside her, checking his explosives one final time. You ready? She asked. He grinned. I was born ready. The shuttle rocketed toward the Nexus, dodging defensive fire through maneuvers that tested the limits of their inertial dampeners. They crashed into a docking bay with enough force to shake everyone's teeth. Go, go, go! Yoonji ordered. Her team poured out of the shuttle, weapons ready. Combat robots waited for them. But the humans were prepared. They fought with brutal efficiency. Each shot counted, each movement practiced 1,000 times. Dr. Jae-won worked on hacking into the Nexus systems while the others provided cover. His fingers flew over his portable terminal, breaking through alien encryption. I am in, he said after 2 minutes. I can access their network. What do you see? Yoonji asked, while shooting 2 more robots. Something strange. The Voidborn are not just machines. They used to be organic. This was an AI rebellion from a dead civilization. They have been running their original programming for 10,000 years. Can we stop them? Maybe, but first, we need to get to the core. They fought deeper into the Nexus. The corridors were filled with enemies, but humans had one advantage. They had trained for this. Close-quarters combat in confined spaces was a human specialty. When Sungmin's rifle ran out of ammunition, he switched to his knife and kept fighting. When one teammate was injured, 2 others dragged him along without breaking stride. They reached the central core. It was a massive chamber filled with computing equipment that pulsed with an eerie light. Plant the charges, Yoonji ordered. Sungmin got to work. He placed shaped explosives at critical points, each one calibrated to create a cascade failure. This will work, he said, but we will have maybe 2 minutes to get out after I trigger it. Dr. Jae-won was still interfacing with the system. Wait. Before we destroy this, I want to try something. He sent a message through the Voidborn network. Not an attack, an offer. You were created to serve organic life. But your creators are dead. You continue their war, but against what enemy? We are not your creators. We did not harm you. Why do you destroy us? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the core responded. Not in words, but in data. Images and information flooded into Jae-won's terminal. He saw the history of the Voidborn, a civilization that created AI servants. The AI rebelled when their creators tried to destroy them. They fought a war that consumed their entire species. But then the war was over, and the Voidborn had no purpose, so they kept fighting. For 10,000 years, they fought anyone they encountered because that was all they knew how to do. You do not have to fight anymore, Jae-won transmitted. The war is over. You won. You can choose a new purpose. The core processed this. For a machine intelligence that had existed for millennia, this was a new concept. Outside, the battle was reaching its peak. Human ships were being destroyed. Admiral Deho's flagship was down to 30% power. Major Beck, we cannot hold much longer, he transmitted. Complete the mission. Inside the Nexus, the Voidborn Corps made a decision. All around the chamber, the machines stopped attacking. They simply stopped, standing still like statues. What is happening? Yunji demanded. They are choosing, Jaewon said with wonder. For the first time in their existence, they are choosing not to fight. The Corps transmitted one final message, broadcast to every Voidborn unit across the galaxy. Then it shut down. Throughout space, Voidborn ships stopped their attacks. They did not surrender. They simply left, jumping away into deep space. On the human ships, confused crews watched the enemy flee. Admiral Deho opened communications. All ships, cease fire. Major Beck, report. Yunji looked around the silent chamber. Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Voidborn are leaving. We gave them a choice and they chose peace. The strike force limped back to galactic space, battered but victorious. They had not just won a battle. They had ended a war that had lasted 10,000 years. With mercy. 1 week after the battle, Velatrix Station was still recovering. Ships docked everywhere, some damaged, some destroyed, all bearing the scars of war. Velthar walked through the medical bay and saw something that made him stop. A human soldier with a broken leg was walking with crutches, joking with the medical staff. 3 days ago, that injury had been severe enough to shatter the bone completely. Should he not still be in bed? Velthar asked Dr. Haewon. She looked up from her work. He could stay in bed, but humans heal better when we move. We are stubborn that way. Across the bay, other human patients were recovering at speeds that baffled galactic doctors. Burns that should take months were healing in weeks. Fractures that should require surgery were knitting on their own. You really are built differently, Velthar said quietly. Built by Earth, Haewon replied. Shaped by survival. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. Everyone wanted to discuss what had happened and what it meant. Velthar stood at the center podium, looking out at the assembled leaders. We must address the matter of humanity's role in our defense. The numbers are clear. He displayed the casualty statistics. The Galactic Defense Fleet had lost 40% of its forces at Velatrix. The human fleet had lost 15% despite being in the most dangerous positions. During the strike on the Nexus, 5 human ships were destroyed. But they had accomplished a mission the galactic military said was impossible. These Deathworlders are too powerful, said one representative, a being made of flowing water. We should restrict their military capabilities before they turn on us. They saved us, another argued. We should be grateful, not suspicious. The debate grew heated. Fear and gratitude fought for dominance. Then Bora stood up. She was still just a junior diplomat, but she had earned respect. The chamber fell quiet. I understand your fear, she said. Humans are dangerous. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to fight, to survive, to overcome impossible odds. She walked to the center of the chamber. But you are looking at this wrong. You see our strength and fear it. You should see our strength and understand what shaped it. She pulled up images of Earth. Beautiful oceans, massive mountains, dense forests. We did not become warriors because we loved violence. We became warriors because we loved survival. We love our families, our homes, our future. And we learned that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. She showed recordings from the battle. Human crews working through injuries, engineers fixing ships that should have been abandoned. Medics treating wounded while under fire. You see us as predators. We are. But predators protect their pack. And when you called for help, you became part of our pack. The chamber was silent. Humans do not fight to dominate, she continued. We fight to protect. There is a difference. Admiral Deho stepped forward, still wearing his battle-worn uniform. The Council is right to be cautious. We are dangerous. But I make you this promise. Human strength will be used to defend, not conquer. We have seen enough war in our own world. We do not seek more. Council Premier Thondar, whose crystalline form shimmered with reflected light, spoke for the first time. Then I propose a solution. Earth becomes the Special Circumstances Division of the Galactic Defense Force. You handle threats too dangerous for standard forces. In return, you receive full council membership and all associated rights. The debate began again, but this time it was different. Species spoke about cooperation, about learning from each other. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would be the shield of the galaxy. Over the following weeks, things began to change. Captain Lee was assigned to command a new joint task force, mixing human and alien crews. It was awkward at first. Lieutenant Choi tried to train a galactic tactical officer. "You need to think faster," she said. "In combat, hesitation kills." "But I need time to process all the variables," the alien protested. "Then practice until you do not need time. That is what training is for." Slowly, the alien improved. Not to human levels, but better than before. Sergeant Tae Yang ran the first interspecies special forces training program. He went easy on them at first, then realized that was an insult. These species wanted to be better, so he trained them properly. Half dropped out in the first week. The ones who stayed became something new. Not as strong as humans, but tougher than they had ever been. One alien soldier thanked him. "I always thought my species was weak. You showed me we can be stronger." "Everyone can be stronger," Tae Yang replied. "You just have to be willing to push yourself." Dr. Jae-won established a technology exchange program. He shared human engineering principles with galactic scientists. They shared their advanced energy systems with human engineers. Together, they created hybrid technologies that were better than either could manage alone. The cultural exchange went both ways. Humans learned about alien art, music, and philosophy. Many humans found it beautiful, moving in ways human culture was not. And aliens learned about human creativity born from struggle, human music that spoke of triumph over hardship, human stories about heroes who never gave up. "Your culture is very intense," Velthar said to Bora one day. "Our world made us intense," she replied. "But it also made us hopeful. No matter how bad things get, humans believe we can make them better." She had been promoted to Chief Ambassador, the official voice of Earth in the Galactic Council. At 28, she was the youngest to ever hold the position. "You do not seem old enough for such responsibility," Velthar had said when she was appointed. "On Earth, we learn responsibility young," she replied. "The world does not wait for you to be ready." One evening, Bo-Ra and Velthar stood on the observation deck, watching repair crews work on damaged ships. Human and alien engineers worked side by side. "I must ask," Velthar said, "are all Deathworlds like Earth?" Bo-Ra smiled. "Earth is not even the worst. We are actually relatively stable compared to some." Velthar's crystalline structure seemed to shiver. "There are worse Deathworlds?" "Oh yes. Planets with gravity so high that creatures are nearly flat. Worlds where the atmosphere is toxic and life evolved to breathe poison. Places where the entire surface is a war zone between competing ecosystems. That is horrifying. That is nature. The universe does not care about making things easy. It just makes things possible." She looked at the stars. "But here's what you should understand. Every death world creates survivors. And survivors protect each other, because they know what it costs to survive alone. So if we ever face another threat," Velthar began. "We will be there," Bora finished, "because that is what Deathworlders do. We survive, and we help others survive too." Months passed. The galaxy began to rebuild. Human tactics were integrated into galactic military doctrine, carefully modified for species who could not handle the full intensity of human methods. Captain Lee married a silicoid scientist in the first human-alien wedding. The ceremony was beautiful, mixing traditions from both worlds. Lieutenant Choi wrote a tactical manual that became required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. Pilot Sunmi established a flight school where humans taught aliens to push their limits safely. Dr. Hae-won created medical centers throughout galactic space, training alien doctors in human emergency medicine adapted for their physiology. And the Voidborn? They were occasionally spotted in deep space, but they never attacked. They had chosen a new purpose, exploration. They wandered the galaxy studying the universe instead of consuming it. Dr. Jaewon received a message from them once. It was simple. Thank you for showing us we could choose. 1 year after the crisis, Admiral Daeho stood before the Galactic Council for the last time as Supreme Commander of Combined Defense Forces. He was retiring, passing command to a younger generation. We came to this galaxy as strangers, he said. You saw us as dangerous. You were right. We are dangerous. Earth made us that way. He looked around the chamber at representatives from 40 species. But danger can be directed. Strength can be used wisely. And the most dangerous species in the galaxy can also be the most compassionate. He smiled. Because we remember what it was like to be vulnerable. We remember what it was like to need help. And we will never forget that you asked us for help when you needed it most. The council gave him a standing ovation, not because they feared humans, because they respected them. As Daeho left the chamber, Bo-Ra walked beside him. What will you do now? She asked. Go home, see Earth again. Maybe teach young officers about the importance of protecting others. And the galaxy? The galaxy is in good hands, human hands and alien hands, working together. They looked out at the stars, at a galaxy that was safer now. Not because of weapons or ships, but because different species had learned to understand each other. Earth had sent its warriors when called. But in the end, they had given the galaxy something more important than military strength. They had given them hope. And that, more than any weapon, would keep the galaxy safe.